Hello, friends. Steve Stockton here with you. Welcome to our latest episode. This time, we'll bring you more dangers from the Appalachian Trail. Join me. Let's walk and see. Now, every year, there are almost 100 search and rescue calls for America's most visited national park. Yes, I'm talking about the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It's over 500,000 acres, situated in western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee, almost equally divided. And as I said, it's the most visited national park in the United States, drawing in almost 13 million visitors in 2022 alone. The rugged and heavily forested mountains attract people from all over the world who come to see the rhododendron, the mountain laurel, even the firefly shows. There's also wild berries that grow in abundance. The name Great Smokies comes from the mist that clings to the mountains, giving the appearance of smoke. The Appalachian Trail cuts through the heart of the Smokies and is a popular destination for many of the park's visitors. Because it is so popular, each year there are accidents such as falls, motor vehicle collisions, and drownings, along with missing person cases and the occasional homicide. Park rangers and staff work diligently to make sure visitors have a safe, fun, and memorable visit, and ask that anyone visiting please adhere to park rules and closures, especially trails. Know before you go. The Great Smoky Mountains is the most popular of all the national parks and therefore has large crowds, and parking can be limited in some places and must be paid for. This area of the United States is humid, so visitors can easily become dehydrated. Carry plenty of water, especially in the summer months. Always tell someone your plans, including dates, times, and places. Leave an itinerary with family, a friend, or in your car. Personal location devices, cell phones, a map, compass, and even a GPS are always a good idea. Stay on designated trails. Many people who end up becoming lost leave the trail they're on to explore or find a place to camp, and then simply can't find their way back to the trail. The aforementioned Firefly Show is a lottery system and must be applied for months in advance. There are other areas of the park that are by permit or reservation only, and visitors must apply for those months in advance as well. Cades Cove is one of those areas. The weather can vary. Dress for the season and take the necessary clothing for extreme weather conditions such as rain and snow. The weather can change fast. There are several primitive camping sites and waterfall areas within the park. Don't be afraid to ask the friendly locals where the best places are to take photos, see abandoned structures, and possibly go for a swim. Being from the area, I can recommend Looking Glass Falls, Sliding Rock, Rainbow Falls, and the Sinks are some of the most beautiful water attractions in the park. Be advised, though, that the sinks are very dangerous, and many people have drowned by slipping on the rocks below the 15-foot waterfall and then being sucked into the whirlpool that occurs naturally at the bottom. The Pisgah National Forest borders the Great Smokies. There's also over 500,000 acres of hardwood forest, hiking trails, and beautiful scenery. Make a special trip to this area and see the famed poet Carl Sandburg's home. It's on the North Carolina side of Pisgah. You won't be sorry. And last, be aware of the wildlife. Bears do inhabit this area. Keep food safely stored away and be vigilant when hiking. The more noise you make in bear country, the better. While in this area, if you get the chance, I also recommend the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is also a part of the Great Smokies. The following are a few updated stories from the Blue Ridge Parkway, the Great Smokies, and Pisgah National Forest. On April 23, 2023, 68-year-old Gordon Kay of Tampa, Florida, took to the trails of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park near Deep Creek in Swain County, North Carolina. According to Kay's family, who reported missing on April 26th after having not heard from him in a few days, he was an avid camper and experienced hiker and hunter and was familiar with the area where he had reserved a camping spot at the Deep Creek campground. This was where he was last seen on April the 22nd or 23rd. The camping spot had been reserved under Kay's name for 14 days. Search and rescue teams from surrounding counties and a few from South Carolina joined the search alongside Appalachian Trail Rangers, the Asheville Fire Department, Buncombe County Sheriff's Department, and some 120 other volunteers from 29 agencies in 2 states. Efforts ramped up a couple of days into the search when crews learned that Gordon might be suffering from a mental health crisis. The new information intensified search efforts over the weekend. Dog teams from 2 different agencies were brought in to help assist in the ground search. An official statement was released that Saturday and reads as follows. Quote, teams are out searching again today and are prepared to search for the rest of the week. It's a ground search. The search area is covered in thick rhododendron and the trees are leafed out, so ground searching is the most effective tool. Dog teams have been involved in the search. End quote. Gordon Kay is described as being a Caucasian male with brown hair and blue eyes. He stands 5 foot 10 inches tall and weighs about 220 pounds. Kay may also be suffering from a mental break. His family is very worried about him. If anyone remembers seeing anyone near Deep Creek Campground or the surrounding areas that fit Gordon Kay's description, you're urged to contact the Great Smoky Mountains National Park Dispatch at 865-436-1230 or Swain County Dispatch at 828-488-2196 and reference Gordon Kay. Folks, let's help bring Mr. Kay home. Now, a little update here. The search for Gordon Kay has been suspended as of May 4th, 2023. The official search lasted 11 days, turning up no clue as to Kay's whereabouts. Perhaps one of the largest searches in the history of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, aside from Dennis Martin, started on September 25th, 2018, when 53-year-old Missy Sue Susan Clements of Cincinnati, Ohio, went missing while on vacation in the Clingman's Dome area with her 20-year-old daughter. The mother of 3 had agreed to meet her daughter in the parking lot of the Forney Ridge Trail near Andrews Bald. But when her daughter arrived, Clements was nowhere to be found. Earlier that day, the 2 women had hiked the trail, and as the afternoon approached, Clements' daughter decided to hike to the top of Clingman's Dome Observation Tower. It is a beautiful view up there and the highest point in the Smokies. As she was hiking a little faster than her mother, she told her she would meet her back at the car, about 1/10 of a mile away from the trailhead. They weren't separated for very long at all, and when the daughter returned to the parking area, her mother was simply gone. The young woman retraced her steps back on Forney Ridge Trail, but found nothing. A short while later, she contacted park officials and reported her mother officially missing. A week-long search and rescue effort was launched right away. 125 search and rescue members from 30 different agencies searched alongside trained canines looking for any clue that might lead them to the missing woman. Damp, rainy weather hampered search efforts as temperatures plummeted into the 40s Fahrenheit. Helicopters and drones were grounded due to the worsening weather conditions. By the week's end, over 175 search and rescue personnel from 50 different agencies in 5 states had hiked over 500 miles of trails in a grid search, along with canines, helicopters, and drones, weather permitting. However, no clues were ever found in the initial search. That official search ended that weekend as search and rescue crews scoured the area with no trace of Clements being found. Then on Tuesday, October 2nd, 2018, a hiker in the area spotted what looked like a body off trail and down a steep rocky ravine. Authorities were summoned to the scene, where they found the remains of Clements at the bottom of a steep drainage ditch. She was nude and in the water of Huggins Creek drainage ditch in the thick bramble. The weather was foggy and rain had settled in the area, but the weather broke long enough for a Black Hawk helicopter to be called in to extract the missing woman's remains from the heavily vegetated area. No one could explain how the missing Ohio mother could have found her way to the area in which she was found. In a statement released by the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, spokeswoman Jelena Campbell explains the search and recovery details. Quoting here, "We just don't know what happened, because she was found in the middle of nowhere. There aren't any trails nearby. The closest trail to that would have been the Appalachian Trail. We don't know if she was on that trail." End quote. An unnamed source told the Asheville Citizen-Times, quote, "Hypothermia is thought to be one possibility of Clements' disappearance, but without further details, it's hard to say. End quote. Now, foul play is not suspected in Susan Clements' case. No further details of autopsy results were ever given. 3 weeks prior to Missy Sue Clements going missing, a ginseng poacher also went missing in the Cades Cove area and was found by park officials deceased with a black bear roaming nearby. It was later determined to be an accidental overdose and not a bear attack that took the life of 30-year-old William Lee Hill Jr. Unfortunately, the bear showed signs of aggression and, because of the high traffic of park visitors in the area, had to be euthanized. Poor bear. There were an additional 10 deaths in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in 2018. 5 of those were vehicle-related. 1 was a motorcycle accident. 1 death was attributed to a head injury when a lady fell from her bicycle. 1 was a possible bear attack, and 1 was self-inflicted. This number was up from the previous year, 2017. That year, the park had 7 deaths, but rangers stated that 2016 was one of the worst years, as they had 16 deaths inside the park. As mentioned, bordering the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the Pisgah National Forest. With over 500,000 acres, the Pisgah National Forest is one of the oldest nature preserves in North Carolina. One of the many attractions is our writer's sandy hometown of Asheville, North Carolina. Pisgah, as the locals call it, has a diverse ecosystem, including the most salamander species anywhere in North America. Millions of people come to the Pisgah National Forest, the Appalachians, and the Blue Ridge Parkway from all over the world every year to experience some of the most beautiful landscapes America offers. Having joined its sister parks in 1916, this hardwood forest has hundreds of miles of trails the visitors take to each year. It was this very lure of adventure and beauty that drew 80-year-old John and his 84-year-old wife Irene Bryant in October of 2007. The couple was on a day hike in the area when they sadly encountered the National Forest serial killer, Gary Mitchell Hilton. They were kidnapped and murdered in what authorities believed to be separate areas. Irene Bryant was an avid hiker and loved the Pisgah so much that she and her husband retired to the area of Horseshoe, North Carolina, about 20 miles from where they were found. Her husband, John, was also an experienced hiker and had completed the entire Appalachian Trail, although he had to do it in sections due to an ongoing case of spinal arthritis. Having been born and raised in the Pacific Northwest area of the United States, they also lived in Montana and upstate New York, where they worked. John is an engineer, and Irene is a large animal veterinarian. In fact, Irene Bryant was one of the first women large animal veterinarians in Montana. Quote, "Decent, salt-of-the-earth people, unique, loved, and respected. These are the words everyone that was questioned about the Bryants used to describe them. They were also world travelers with a taste for adventure and knowledge. With retirement looming, the couple chose the small town in western North Carolina because of the plethora of hiking trails available, enabling them to do the weekly hikes they love so much. It was on one of these hikes that they met serial killer 61-year-old Gary Michael Hilton. From what investigators gathered while meeting with authorities from Florida and Georgia, where Hilton also had victims, the National Forest serial killer stalked potential victims on the trails of several national forests on the East Coast, looking for opportunities to murder and steal supplies from the deceased victims. Hilton kidnapped the Bryants and murdered both, leaving Irene nearby covered with brush. John Bryant's body has never been found. Then, on January 1st, 2008, 28-year-old Meredith Emerson was reported missing after taking her dog with her on a hike to Blood Mountain in Georgia. News spread quickly about the University of Georgia graduate's disappearance, and tips started to pour into local and state police. One tip stated, quote, "An older man with a red dog," end quote, was in the area on the day Emerson had gone missing. With these tips and a description, police went to the media asking for the public to help in identifying the man as a person of interest. A former employer of Gary Michael Hilton contacted authorities and told them that their description fit his ex-employee named Gary Hilton, who also owned a red dog. He also advised the police that Hilton was a veteran and survivalist, able to live off the land for long periods of time. Quote, "He's out there in the forest all the time, and that description matches him," end quote, Paul Holst stated. 3 days later, on January 4th, 2008, a convenience store clerk, aware of the situation, observed a man fitting Hilton's description pull up to a dumpster and start throwing things away from the back of the van he was driving. The quick-thinking clerk contacted authorities, and Gary Michael Hilton was placed into custody. Later that day, Hilton agreed to lead authorities to the beheaded remains of Beaufort, Georgia resident Meredith Emerson in lieu of taking the death penalty off the table. Her dog was found on the same day, unharmed, in Cumming, Georgia, over 60 miles away, and was returned to her family. Later, forensic tests on the van revealed that the DNA found did match that of Meredith Emerson. Hilton also admitted to holding Emerson for 3 days before taking her life as he used her debit card to obtain cash, and told them that he had a hard time doing away with her as they had, quote, several good days together, end quote. On January 30th, 2008, Gary Michael Hilton pled guilty to the killing of Meredith Emerson and received a sentence of life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Later in 2008, Hilton was linked to and charged with 3 additional murders: the October 2007 kidnapping and murders of the Bryants, and the December 2007 murder of 46-year-old Florida resident Cheryl Dunlap. Dunlap, a nurse at Florida State University, had been missing since December 1, 2007, and was reported missing the next day when she failed to show up to teach Sunday school. On December 19, 2008, hunters in the Appalachian National Forest found the torso of a woman and contacted authorities. Police responded to the area and, after a primary search, found only the torso. Later, they would be led to a fire pit where they located Dunlap's other partially burned remains. Having been sentenced in Georgia for the Emerson case, Florida officials transported Hilton to Tallahassee to stand trial for the Dunlap case. He was subsequently found guilty and sentenced to death in 2011 after a unanimous recommendation from the jury. In 2020, Hilton appealed his conviction, citing poor representation of counsel in the first trial and severe mental illness. The case was brought before the Florida State Supreme Court, where it was ruled that the death penalty initially handed down by the lower court would stay in place. In 2021, Hilton once again tried to appeal his death sentence, citing new evidence uncovered about his abusive childhood and a brain injury he suffered at an unknown age. His appeal was rejected. Gary Michael Hilton, a.k.a. the National Park serial killer, remains on Florida's death row. He has several appeals working their way through the court system. As detectives and other officials worked on the case, another missing persons case within the Pisgah National Forest and Appalachian Trail fit Hilton's profile of potential victims. On December 7, 2005, 26-year-old Rosanna Miliani went missing from Cherokee, North Carolina, while on vacation from Florida. The last time she was seen was by the hotel clerk around noon. In their last conversation, she told her father she planned to hike on the Appalachian Trail, and at the time of the initial investigation, was last spotted near Bryson City, North Carolina, renting a storage unit. On the 2-year anniversary of Miliani's disappearance, a store clerk contacted a private investigator working on the case and recalled seeing Miliani with a, quote, older gentleman, approximately 60 years old with gray hair at the temples of his head, end quote. The clerk went on to say he sold Miliani a backpack and that she seemed to be, quote, nervous during the transaction, end quote. In 2009, the private investigator released a drawing depicting the description of the suspect seen with Miliani that fateful day. Rosanna Miliani is described as a Caucasian female, standing around 5 foot 7 inches tall and weighing approximately 220 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. She has a tattoo of a lotus flower with Chinese lettering in red and blue on her back and a small birthmark on her chin. She has had her wisdom teeth extracted and both ears double pierced. If you think you remember seeing someone that fits Rosanna Miliani's description on or around December 7, 2005, or have any information on her case, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, please contact either the Asheville, North Carolina Police Department, the Swain County, North Carolina Sheriff's Department, or the Broward County Sheriff's Department who are working the case. Asheville PD can be reached at 828-259-5910. The Swain County Sheriff's Department can be reached at 828-488-4844. And the Broward County Sheriff's Department at 954-491-4667. 3920. Well, folks, there you have it. Some sad, sad cases indeed. Pray that the families get closure. I look forward to your comments, but please keep it friendly and respectful. Until we meet again, be good to yourselves and each other, and stay safe out there this summer if you go hiking or camping. I'm Steve Stockton, and as for me, I'll see you a little further on down the trail. Tell your animals Steve says hi. And before I let you go, I just wanted to remind you, if you love what we do here on Among the Missing, you'll love our great partnership with Spaced Out Radio. Spaced Out Radio is a show I listen to nightly for news, information, and great stories in the unknown. And in the third hour, you'll hear a great story from me as well. Spaced Out Radio is live 7 nights a week. Make sure you head over to their YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio, and hit the subscribe button and ring that bell. And tell them Steve Stockton sent you.